Hey everybody, welcome to the Billy Rickman Show. Today I've got an awesome guest with me, someone totally different to who you would normally see on the Billy Rickman Show, but someone who I only met recently, and we've connected really well. I find her super interesting, super engaging, and I know you will too. Welcome to the show. Her name is Asti Maree. Welcome, Asti.
Yes. Thanks for having me, Billy.
No problems at all. And you're in New Zealand at the moment.
I am. So I live in Sydney now, but I'm originally from New Zealand. So just back visiting family and working a little bit as well while I'm here.
Awesome. What work are you doing over there at the moment?
So I was actually flown over to Queenstown to teach at an outdoor
place in
festival.
The world.
It was
Such
amazing. Amazing. So I was teaching female empowerment in between the mountains outside. Snowed one of the nights. Yeah, it was a beautiful experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So a lot of people who listen to my podcast, I think this is probably, I don't know exactly what episode it is because I'm recording a few at the moment, pre-recording, but I think it's probably around 97, something like that. And so all of my podcast episodes are largely focused on mindset, business, marketing, sales, strategy, like the hustle kind of thing. We actually just did a Facebook Live, as you know. Didn't go overly well for me, went awesome for you. And we mentioned a little bit about the hustle. And so a lot of people who follow my podcast, I think at the moment, it's pretty good. We get about 1,000 listeners per episode, which is pretty cool. But a lot of people now are looking at this on YouTube or listening to some podcasts and going, wait a minute, why has he got a female sexual empowerment coach on his podcast, on his show? So with all that being said, I'll hand the reins over to you and let you explain a little bit about what you do. And then we'll allow the listeners to understand why it is that you and I are connected and what it is that brings us together.
All right, amazing. So I'm a female empowerment coach, but at the core of everything that I do is sexual empowerment. So I help women heal past trauma, let go of conditioning, and build new empowering narratives around what it means to them to be a sexual woman. I allow them to tap back into their sexual power, their feminine essence, and their sensuality. And this ultimately helps their lives on all levels. So better sex, better relationships with themselves. And of course, it makes them thrive in business. So it's really, really powerful work.
Yeah.
It does kind of go a little bit away from what you would typically do. So you said most of the stuff that you do is very structure based. Whereas what I found in my own business journey and with a lot of my clients is, for women in particular, is if we come back into our feminine essence and surrender and live in a place of being rather than doing, this is actually how we manifest success. So it's not about doing, it's not about the grinding away, work, hustle. For us, it's more about stepping back and just allowing things to flow to us.
Okay, and so normally when I do these episodes,
you're like, what?
This is super interesting to me, and a lot of people would watch this actually and go, it's really funny to see Billy so speechless. But I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's really interesting to me because it's something so foreign, and I find it just being interesting because I am a male, and for the first 10 years of my life, I was in the military, and so for the first 10 years of my life, I was like predominantly just men everywhere, like, there was just my bunk area, for example, we had 65 men and it was all in a small little space. And I always use an example. And then afterwards I got into this industry, and it was, for the last 10 years, I've just worked with pretty much 95% females. And the funny example I always give is in the military, if you asked another man, like as I got higher in the ranks, I'd say, hey, can you please go and empty that bin? A man would go, yeah, sure, go and empty the bin. When I started working with women, it was like, hey, can you go and empty the bin? And later I'd be like, someone would say, oh, are you angry at Sarah? Like, what? Like, because you asked her to empty the bin. I was like, because it was full.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she thinks that you asked her because she's done something wrong. And like, no, it's just the bin was full. And in the past 10 years, like I've totally got it that men and women are just so unbelievably different in their thought processes. So having you on today is actually really cool for me because I've worked with women for 10 years, but now I'm really trying to understand and get a little bit more insight into how a woman's mind works and things like that. So tell me, in your experience then, what is the main differences between masculinity and femininity? And I know I just got educated in that live, you just did that feminine is actually the energy. So I didn't know that. And so I'm learning. So what is the main difference? Masculinity, femininity, feminine, masculine, what is it?
So I guess like a really simple way to put it for everyone to understand is the masculine is more about doing. So men are very goal orientated and driven in that sense. And for the feminine is more about being. So the masculine is more up in the head with structure and planning and strategy. The feminine is more in the body, about just being present and feeling. So this is why we're like a lot more emotional, I guess, than men. We're a lot more in touch with our feelings because we are in the body. So women are more feeling, and feminine is more feeling and masculine is more doing. And we both have these energies, man or woman, we both have masculine and feminine energies. And it's all about balancing those energies and knowing when to tap into one or the other.
Okay. So what made you get into this?
Well, so I got into the sexuality side of it. People always ask me, they're like, what is the one thing that like kind of led you down this path? And I can't answer, like, I don't know. For me, I feel like it's every single thing that has ever happened to me in my life was just like pushing me to where I am now. Like my past relationships, obviously being a stripper, becoming a showgirl, being a stripper, noticing like a lot of the guys that came to me, they didn't necessarily want to lap dance. They wanted, a lot of them, especially now that I tell them what I do, they want to sit down and talk about their relationship. So people are there because they're hurting. And there's so much miscommunication between men and women. And I've just noticed, like, on a whole, with everyone that I've met along my journey, that we really need to begin to understand each other more and become more harmonious between us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I don't talk to people in the same level that you do, but like, I think there's this misconception. It's so funny. I just had a conversation with, I've got a new coach starting here. I'm doing some training with her this week. And we're literally just having this conversation. I was like, and we were talking about this podcast coming up about what we're going to talk about. She's like, maybe you should talk about, maybe you should ask her about her thoughts on the whole Me Too movement as well. And I said, well, I'm kind of passionate about the whole Me Too movement as well, because I really feel that in the last 2 years, that the other side of Me Too, and I totally, I'm totally sympathetic and empathetic with that movement. But at the same time as well, I really feel like men have become really victimized and men at the moment are being portrayed as these evil people in a lot of spaces, especially by the media, that we're aggressive and overly masculine. And but the men I know in my life and most of the men I've ever come across, we're the protectors of female. Like if a man ever said in any about my circles that they did something to a woman, they would be bashed within an inch of their life. It's just not like that. And most
I think
of the men
that's
now,
actually
I was just gonna say, most of the conversations I had now, going back to what you're saying, is as I was a teenager and 20-year-old, we'd talk about boobs and stuff and all those sorts of things. And then, but now I have conversations with men, and really it's about relationships. Like, I just can't communicate with my wife anymore. I can't get through. Like, she doesn't understand what I'm saying. And I'm sure she's having conversations with her friends as well, going, he just doesn't get me and things like that.
It's all communication.
Totally get it when you just said that. Like, there's a lot of hurt. Absolutely. And I've seen that in my own life now with the people I speak to about relationships, and they are hurting because there's no communication. They just feel like they're just butting heads.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like with the Me Too movement, it's really interesting. Like, it's a little bit funny. Like, I know it's not fair that men feel attacked right now, but it's funny that so many men are like, oh my God, the world's against us. And how long has this been going for? Like a couple of years. Whereas for the last like hundreds and thousands of years, it's been women. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the tables.
How's it know?
Yes. Women's sexuality has been repressed since like forever.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. But now the tables are turned and men are like, oh no. But I think it is really positive because, to be honest, and I've had this conversation with a lot of the men in my life, a lot of guys didn't even realize it was going on. And like you said, men are out there to protect women, but how are they supposed to protect us when they don't actually know what we're dealing with? So I feel like a lot of the good guys out there just weren't even aware of what life was like to be living as a woman. And now that they know, they can stand up for us a little bit more, both by like protecting and looking after us, but putting other men in their place.
Yeah, which I see all the time, like in my own circles. And I think a lot of women don't see that because men act differently within their own circles, as I'm sure women do. But most men are good, upstanding men, and they 100%. Will do good things. And so it is such an interesting time. I don't. I feel like actually what I might do is, because as you were talking, and I was going to, talk about it. And I think I'll actually get you onto another podcast, because I'm sure people are going to find this interesting, that you and I are talking about this one today. And maybe we could delve a little bit deeper into that, because it is an interesting topic.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Now I've got your commitment for that. We will, going on about the relationships and the communication. Because yes, it is a business podcast. Yes, we talk about all the head stuff and the all the structure stuff that you spoke about before. But communication is at the essence of everything, right? It's like, if you can't communicate, if you are the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you're talking badly to the cleaners, or the people who empty the bins, like, there's an issue there, and that will stop businesses from succeeding. It doesn't matter what level you are and how polar apart you are. Communication is so important in business, but ultimately communication is in relationships. It's just so fundamental, right? And so many people are doing it wrong. 100%.
Yeah. And I feel like it's easier to communicate what you want, obviously, when you know what you want. But a lot of women don't know, because they've never actually had the opportunity to kind of like pull away all of the society standards and everything that's been placed on them of like what a woman should be, or how a woman should look, how we should be living our lives, like how you should be living as a mother, as a wife, as a partner, as a lover. There's like all these shoulds put on us. But if you have the opportunity to kind of like strip that back and come home into your own essence and your own power in your body and ask the question from there, you have complete understanding of what it is that you want, and it makes it so much easier to communicate that. But also you're tapped into your power, into your body, and into love. So asking it becomes a lot easier.
So why then is it that people don't have that? I was listening to, do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all? Gary V? No. He was talking about it the other day, and he was talking about, self-doubt. And he was asking a question. Someone posed the question to him and said, it was a female. She said, I've got so much self-doubt. And he said, where does that come from? And she goes, well, I just don't believe myself. It's all in my head. And he said, it's not in your head at all. You weren't born with self-doubt.
No.
When you were 6, you didn't have self-doubt. Like, if you had self-doubt, you wouldn't have learned to walk, because you just would have doubted yourself that you could do such an amazing thing. I'm crawling one day. Hey, you know what? I'm going to get up on 2 legs and start walking. Like, you just wouldn't do it. And,
we're not born with it, but we all have little times in our lives where people put their limiting beliefs on us.
Absolutely. So that's what I wanted to get to.
Story that I have, which I've shared this on my own Instagram before, is when I was younger.
What's your Instagram?
Asti Maree. Asti.Maree.
Good little plug, yeah.
I remember I must have been about, I don't know, 15, 16. And my dad said to me, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be the news reporter. I want to be on TV, like reporting the news. And straight away, without even thinking about it, he was like, you're not going to be able to do that. Because for me growing up, I really struggled with reading and spelling. Okay. My dad's dyslexic, so I probably picked that up from him. But that's the kind of limiting beliefs that he would have got as a child. So naturally, he was just putting that on me. And being that age, I just believed it. And I was like, I can't do that. And I held myself back for so long in that side of things, like in the academic world, I guess. And I actually have kind of come to realize just over the last couple of years that maybe that is one of the reasons why I went into stripping, because I got taught my whole life that I was beautiful, but also got taught my whole life that I wasn't intelligent. And I knew that if I went down that path, it would be easy for me because I could rely on my beauty, and I didn't.
You could play on your strengths as you were told, right?
So coming into business, when I decided that this is what I wanted to do, it was scary. Like, I've written blog posts, I write Instagram posts, I make spelling mistakes, but at the end of the day, I'm still doing it, right? But it was so scary to put myself out there at first, being told my whole life by teachers, my parents, and everyone that I wasn't smart enough. So that's just an example, but we all have limiting beliefs put on us like this, and it's really hard to shake that.
Yeah, and it's like that example about stress where someone was doing a metaphor about stress, and they said stress in itself is not it's not that bad, but if you don't remove the stress, just like piles on top of each other, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and then you go, well, you know what, I'm going to go on a yoga retreat for a week. And then you come back expecting to be like, Zen. And you're like, oh, I don't feel like that. Why? And then you think there's something wrong with you. It's because you've had this compounded stress for so many years. Mm-hmm. And I think that the limiting beliefs are exactly the same. Yeah. It's like, it's not necessarily one thing that one person says to you, but when multiple people consistently are telling you that, the limiting beliefs start to come into play. And that's then when we, guys are in the whole thing of, it's self-doubt. It's not self-doubt. It's self-doubt because you've been told you're not good enough for so long.
Yeah.
And so in your opinion, how does someone work through that? How does someone, because sometimes it's 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of people just going, like, you get 50-year-old women who I deal with in business who go, I'm only now just starting to believe in myself after 50 years. I'm like, far out, like, wow, let's unlock that potential. So how is it that you do in your practice, I guess?
So there's like a lot of different things that I go through. Like some more intense examples would be doing breath work, where you go into the body and actually release all of this emotions and trauma and everything that you're holding on to unconsciously. So you don't actually need to relive the story. But that's quite an intense process. Some like baby steps that you could do, and this is something really easy that you can do at home, is you can be your own mother to your inner child. So what I sometimes get my clients to do is to print off a photo of themselves. Even maybe like think to yourself, like, at what age did I struggle the most? Or if I had to go back to a particular time in my life, which age kind of feels the most uncomfortable? Because that kind of like shows you that that's where you kind of picked up a lot of those limiting beliefs. You can get a picture of yourself at that age and even just speak to yourself as that little girl or that little boy and offer her all of the words of advice and encouragement and everything that she needed at that age. So that little girl, so the reason we're holding on to all these limiting beliefs is because that little girl or that little boy with all of those thoughts and feelings from back then, that's all stored inside you. Like, we're still that same person. But now we also have like this more mature, empowered identity, which is like us today, but we're still living with this other like more insecure side of ours. So it's up to us to really like coach our inner child and mother or father our inner child through that.
Right.
To give them everything that they missed out on when they were a child.
Yeah. And that works?
Yeah. And what's really fascinating with this is because a lot of the things that we are holding on to, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of trauma and wounding and conditioning isn't even necessarily picked up in our own lifetime. So it might not even be a traumatic experience that you had. It might be something from one of your parents or your grandparents. So what actually happens, and this is proven scientifically, that stress and trauma actually gets passed down in our DNA. And that's why you see patterns of disease going down family lineage, because it's all passed down in DNA. So sometimes what you have to let go of isn't even something that you picked up in your own lifetime. It could be something from like generations and generations ago. But the interesting thing with this is as you heal yourself, you simultaneously heal either your children or your parents. And I've seen one of my clients do this, and she did this practice with her little girl. And because she was giving everything to her inner child that she needed, it simultaneously healed the relationship with her mother. Like, her and her mum didn't speak for years.
So
but what she really learned is that everything that she missed out on as a little child and all the conditioning that was put on her is exactly the same thing that happened to her mother. So really, her mother, if she had everything that she needed, she would have been obviously a better mother to her.
Yeah.
Her healing her relationship with her inner child, like, her mum and her didn't speak for like months, and then she was coming around with flowers. They were organizing dinners with each other. Like, it's just crazy. Sometimes you can't even explain like what happens with this type of work, but
well, I guess there's so much I want to ask about that. There's two questions. Remind me, I want to come back to the energy component of that.
Okay.
Just remind me. But with that though, do you find that sometimes when someone decides to heal themselves, or someone decides to take a different path, that it can have the opposite effect, where people kind of look at you and the whole judgment thing comes out, like, who do you think you are? What are you trying to do? Like, what are you all these different strategies or different ways they're now communicating, and they've changed their life basically. And people who from I think through their own low self-esteem, and because they don't want to see change in other people, because that makes them feel less of a person, what have you, and then they push back. And so do you find sometimes in some instances, especially with family, where when someone tries to make positive changes in their life or heal aspects in their life, it can sometimes push other people aside, or further away, because they feel less of themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It triggers people, of course, especially I've noticed with sexuality, because as women, we've all been conditioned to be afraid of our sexuality. So we kind of disown that. And if I was to go out and like, I've disowned my sexuality, if I was to go out and see this like incredibly sexually empowered woman who's like just so embodied in her sexual essence.
Wearing gumboots on stage.
Yeah. You can still be sexy in gumboots.
Yeah. I'll post, in the post-production, I'll put a little image of you up on the screen now, picture of it. Yeah, keep going.
Funny. So that's going to trigger me because I'm going to look at that and be like, well, how come she's allowed to be embodied in her sexuality if I'm not? And you've been taught your whole life that your sexual energy is dangerous. You're afraid of it. So you're going to be afraid of it in other people as well. And that's where jealousy comes up between women. Like there's so much rivalry around that because we're afraid of sexuality. And it doesn't matter if it's our sexual essence or someone else's sexual essence, we're afraid of it. And I actually noticed this a lot when I started stripping because like there's so many women who are really fascinated by sex. Like we all kind of want to like know a little bit more and like it's really juicy, but we're also like really afraid of it because it's taboo. So what I noticed is when I started stripping, I found it quite difficult to tell people at the beginning. But when I first started to mention it to women, like, hey, I'm a stripper, they would either be really into it, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, tell me more, like I can't believe you do that, that's so cool, or they would completely slut shame me. Like the messages and comments, I didn't post any stripping photos on my Facebook, but I was posting pole dancing photos, and the comments that I would get from people, like the bitchiness, like even from some of my old friends, was crazy.
Totally polarizing.
But I took a step back from that and I realized that they were relating to me in the exact same way that they're relating to their own sexuality. So I was just a mirror for them to see how they're not accepting themselves and their own sexual essence.
So what about the people who embraced it and went, oh my God, that's so interesting, tell me more? Were they people who were suppressing it and they were just like, I wish this side of me would come out? Or like, who was what, I guess? Like,
to be honest, I feel like it's kind of mixed. Like it's like we are like everyone is like really like fascinated by it, but then we're also afraid of it.
Yeah, it's like you'll get to a point, but then don't go far.
Yeah.
I don't actually think that is just with females though. I see that with men as well.
So much. Yeah, but it offers us so much, like so much power, so much juiciness. It allows us to connect to ourselves, our partners, the world around us, like feel better in our bodies. It makes us more alive and vibrant. And like, what did you say before? Like if you're having good sex, then like everything's going to be amazing. Business is gonna be
everyone just needs to get laid, right? That was in the off cuts. You weren't supposed to say that.
So there's like this, obviously this like amazing side to it, but then we all get told that it's wrong. So it's like we're constantly fighting ourselves.
Right. I mean, I've never met a man or a woman who comes to work and walks through the office door and they're in a shitty mood. You know, what's wrong with you? Got laid this morning. Like it doesn't happen, right? It's like, well, man, anyway, we're like high-fiving and stuff. But it's certainly true. It's certainly true. But I think let's go then back to the conversation I want to talk to you about with energy. And because I think this ties into what we're talking about here, the different forms of energy. I am such a believer. I think the fact that dolphins and dogs and other animals can hear things that we can't hear. There's animals that see things that we can't see. There's cameras and lenses that we pick up. There's so many things in life that exist. Like right now in this room, there's light in this room. There's light waves in this room. I can't see them, but it's what gives me light. And I genuinely believe there's so many different types of energy out there that we just take for granted that exist and we don't tap into it. And then when someone actually turns around and goes, yeah, well, that's actually like a defined energy source. Like there is actual substance in that. And and a lot of people are so quick to dismiss it. For me personally, I know we don't know each other that well yet, but for me personally, energy is everything to me. Like everything I commit to with a coaching call, I'm like pacing up and down the room. Even before when we had a phone conversation, we were on the phone and I was just like walking around my office and all the girls outside because we've got glass windows was looking at me like, but that's how I am. I'm just like high energy. I want to commit all the time to things. And I think there's also different types of energy as well. And I guess sexual energy is one of your fortes, not just your forte, but one of your fortes. How much does it impact? How much do the different energy sources impact our daily lives? And how much can it change someone's lives if you understand it, acknowledge it, tap into it, and actually use it to fuel your day-to-day and your being?
Yeah. So energy is huge. So like emotion is energy in motion. So if you're tapped into positive.
Is that actually what it stands for? That's not
yes.
real though, is it?
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
It is not. I'm going to check it
Yes.
afterwards. That is amazing.
Google it.
It's been 36 years and I'm just figuring that out. Like,
yeah.
Wow, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah.
So emotion is energy in motion, which is moving. And typically it's like positive, high vibe emotions that are moving freely. So if you're like dancing, your energy is going to be moving throughout your body. You're going to be feeling better. Right. And typically it's the emotion that's stagnant that becomes depression, anxiety, and disease. So energy that doesn't move actually turns into disease and turns into cancer. But obviously energy is everything. Like if you walked into a business meeting and you're like high vibe, radiating all of this energy, good things are going to come back to you. So it's just the law of attraction. Yeah. Like you're radiating joy, play, sensuality, sexuality, happiness, all of that good stuff. That is all abundant energy. So if you're irradiating those high vibe energies, you're going to become more abundant with the types of clients that you manifest, the amount of money that you manifest, all the opportunities that you manifest. It's huge. So one little tip that I actually teach my clients is, so think about it, what it is that you want to manifest. So a lot of the time we work on like manifesting your dream guy, but say for business you could.
Do you?
Yeah.
Is that what you do? Right.
But let's just like talk about business. So let's just say you wanted to manifest $1 million. Okay.
Got it.
It's not always really just about like that $1 million that you want, right? It's about what that $1 million is going to give you. So you might be able to travel, you might be able to buy a house. So in that instance, say if you're wanting to travel, you're wanting freedom. If you're wanting to buy a house, potentially you're wanting a sense of safety or security. So generally when you want something, it's not necessarily that thing that you want to manifest. It's the embodied emotional state that having that thing is going to give you. And if you think about it in terms of the law of attraction, if you can think, what is the embodied emotional state that having this thing is going to give me? Let's just say with the money and freedom one, if you tap into like right now, the emotion or the body, the felt sense of freedom and feel that and live in that emotion, the thing that you're wanting to manifest is then going to come to you because you're more in alignment with it.
100%. And so the actions that you take are going to be
in alignment.
Your decision making is going to be different. And that's one of the things I always say all the time to business clients, especially when they come into the coaching program in a real distress. Mm-hmm. You know, hey, my house is on the line. My husband's going to leave me. I've got 4 weeks to turn this around. I need your help. Mm-hmm. One of the first things we want to do is to really not even coach them on how to do things. It's like, right, we're just going to tell you what to do. Yeah. You're just going to have to just trust me. Yeah. Do what I'm telling you to do. And because we're going to execute. And in that first 2 or 3 weeks, we get them results. And immediately, because that cloud, is lifted, they're in a different space. Their energy is different. Their thinking is different. They're sleeping better. They're vibrating at a higher frequency and things like that. And it causes their decision making. And all of a sudden, the example I gave before, 50-year-old women who turn around and go, this is the first time I've ever believed in myself in 50 years.
Amazing.
Right. And all of a sudden they turn around in 2 weeks time and go, I'm thinking about opening a second business. Like, whoa. Hang on. I mean, it's awesome, but let's just rein it back a second. But at the same time,
it sounds like we do things opposite. So you get the results, which then lifts the cloud, and I lift the cloud, which then gets results.
Yeah, but I would like to do it that way, but only because time is of the essence. Yeah. You know, in a lot of cases, I've got 4 weeks to change it.
Yeah. But our whole lives we get taught like you have to go out and you have to work hard. Like it's just
I don't believe that.
In us. So for me, like I'm still learning because I'm like have to tell myself it's allowed to be easy. Like if I feel good, things will come to me, and I'm still reminding myself of that because our whole lives we've been taught opposite. So it's really hard to trust.
Which is exactly why I loved it at the very start of this show, this episode, when you said that you struggled with education and that you've always battled with reading and spelling and things like that. Because I'm a massive believer that university is, I won't say for chumps, but I don't believe in the university model.
No.
Okay, let me clear that up. If you're a heart surgeon, go to university. I don't want someone going, oh, we're going to operate on you like out of the Simpsons, Dr. Nick Riviera type situation. Like I want heart surgeons to go to university, but I don't think university for business I don't think you have to go to university. I don't think you have to be particularly good at spelling and things like that. I think you have to know your numbers, and over time you certainly need to learn financials and whatnot. Yeah. But I don't think you have to do that. But it's so true. We are told our entire lives that we must work hard. We must go to school, get an education, do your homework every night, go and do 5-6 years at university, start from the bottom in a corporation, work your way up. And by the time you're 50, you may be in a position where you paid enough money, but the responsibility and burden is so huge that you've got 10 years of that. And then at 65, you can retire and then enjoy your life. It's like, is that what my life is?
I can feel my whole chest and heart.
Yeah. But it's like, is that what life is? And I genuinely, so I love your story that not that you got put down and that you were told that you couldn't do things with your head, but I love the fact you battled through that and you've come out the other side. And I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast will be so inspired by your story and what you do. And I think it's amazing.
And I share that with my followers. I'm like, hey, like I went through school and my spelling and my reading was absolutely shit. And I was like, if you see some spelling mistakes, like who cares? That's who I am. Like I just own it.
Authenticity, right?
Yeah. And it allows other people to see that even if they struggle in those areas, that they can still be successful. That doesn't matter.
100%. I went to watch Richard Branson from Virgin. I went to watch him at it was like an intimate breakfast. It was not many people, which was pretty cool. He's totally shy. He's so unbelievably shy and introverted.
Really?
Yeah, like talks with his head down, doesn't look, very softly spoken. But he was talking like, because he's dyslexic and so he couldn't read books and used to flunk school all the time and whatnot. And because he wasn't really good at school, he got into music, and then he started Virgin Music and started selling records and sort of created this entrepreneurial thing. And his business went from nothing to massive, like multi-million-dollar company, really, really young. And so he was telling this story at the business breakfast that he was at a business meeting. I think he said he was around 22, 23, and his company was making tens of millions of pounds and all the rest of it. And he's sitting around the board table, and there's all of his team are there. There's about 20 people, executives sitting there. And then after the meeting, his chief financial officer said, Mr. Branson, do you mind if we have a quick word after everybody leaves? He said, yeah, sure. And so everyone leaves. He goes, so Mr. Branson, I don't know how to ask you this without being disrespectful, but do you know the difference between gross and net? And he was like, no, I don't know. And so his chief financial officer drew this picture.
You just cut out, so I'm not sure if it's going to cut out on the recording, but what did you say? Do you know the difference between?
Which bit? Gross and net.
Okay.
Gross and net, yeah. And he's like, oh, no, I don't. And he says, oh, okay. And so you got to imagine 22-year-old Richard Branson sitting in this boardroom, in this massive boardroom, making tens of millions of pounds. And his CFO drew this picture of all these fish, those really bad fish that kids draw, and this net. And the net covered some of the fish. And he's like, well, the net are the fish that you get to take home, and the gross is the stuff that just fills the rest of the ocean. And he was like, his company was making, tens of millions of pounds, and he was this 22-year-old. And the reason why is because he was dyslexic and he couldn't read. He always just outsourced everything, and he always, delegated everything. Mm-hmm. And so I guess the important lesson in that is that if somebody who back then, without technology, without the resources, who definitely would have felt isolated because we don't have the education and knowledge these days about learning disorders and all that sort of stuff, and he would have felt different. And he battled through that and started this company that today is obviously worth billions of dollars. And I think it's a testament that no matter who you are, no matter what your upbringing is, no matter what your background, no matter what your difficulties and challenges are, sometimes they can be your biggest asset, because I doubt that he would have got to where he is today if he didn't learn to delegate early, which allowed him to, flourish at the thing he was great at, which is being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
So incredible. you could be the next, well, not Richard Branson, but maybe Ariana Huffington or somebody like that.
You never know. Anything can happen. Anything's possible.
If you believe it is possible, 100%.
Exactly.
So we're going to wrap this up, because otherwise you and I are just going to talk all day. The Sal and Growth Con, I want to finish on that. You are coming to speak with myself and 16 other keynote speakers. Mm-hmm. You're going to add a little bit of flavor, I feel. Like you're going to be the spice, you're going to be the paprika, the bit of the chili. And so what is it you're going to come talk about for people who are interested in coming and watch you speak?
So I want to talk about business growth, but I want to talk about the spiritual side of business growth. So
Okay,
as we've
cool.
been talking about with like the energy embodiment and the feeling rather than the doing and the structure.
Awesome. And you're also doing a bit more of a private roundtable as well, which is going to be a little bit more focused on the sexuality side.
And I think we're going to make it woman only, aren't we?
We are, yeah, for that one. Yeah.
So I think that'll be nice because it'll be woman only and they'll feel safe with each other and be more open to like speaking up and sharing and everything. But we're going to talk about how tapping into your sexual power can ultimately help your business to thrive.
Yeah, awesome. So June 15, 16, I'll put the link in the description on YouTube and on the podcast channel as well. And of course, I'll tag you in it. And if anyone wants to ask you any questions about what you do and how you heal people and how you allow people to be the best version of themselves, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to answer their questions.
Of course, 100%.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been my absolute pleasure to have you on. Always a delight. We'll do another Facebook Live sometime soon when we fix the technical situation with that. And you have to come back on because you promised at the start that we could talk about Me Too and talk about the differences of opinion maybe on that we could be interested.
Let's do it. We could talk all day.
We definitely could. You're in New Zealand, so go and enjoy New Zealand. Go and enjoy your family. And I look forward to chatting with you again really, really soon.
Amazing. I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Asti. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, if you love this video, please make sure you hit the subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. And also, if you have not yet got your tickets for Salon Growth Con 2019, make sure you do. Go to the link that's in the description below because I do not want you to miss out on this amazing event.